Hi, my name is Aprille and welcome to the Yoga Ranger Studio. Today's practice is for all of you out there who are new to the practice of Yin or newer to the practice of Yin. I started practicing Yin about 7 years ago, and I will have to admit that it was a very, very challenging practice for me. I am very type A. I have kind of a crazy monkey mind on cappuccino, and everything wants to continue moving. So for me, Vinyasa Flow was the go-to practice because it helped sort of keep me moving and a little bit out of my head and back into my body. Yin, on the other hand, was a really great learning experience, but it is indeed a learning experience. So we're going to take a look at Yin in a little different way for those of you who are first starting out. One of the things to keep in mind here is that for beginners, you want to start with less hold time. So the average hold time is 1 to 10 minutes. You can hold longer than that for a Yin practitioner for each pose. But understand that if you're someone first starting out, holding a pose for 6, 7, even 4 minutes can seem like an eternity of time and can be really hard to do. So to make that a little bit easier, this is the first of a set of beginner series for all of you out there that will include hold times that are a little bit shorter. What I would consider the 1 to 3 minute-ish marker is where you're a little bit more comfortable. We'll be using a few more props to give you a little bit more comfort and to sort of help you relax the muscles, which can be, once again, a very hard concept to work with since we are used to engaging our muscles for every single practice, every single thing that we do throughout our lives. Couple of things to keep in mind here. There are 3 basic tenets or principles of Yin Yoga. I always add a 4th on there because it's a useful thing to have. That first principle is come to your appropriate edge. And that means not taking the deepest pose that you can take, even though you may be able to fold completely flat to the floor. That's okay. We want you to come up a little bit out of that to about 66%, 2/3 of your maximum hold, and sort of play at that edge. Because you are holding the pose longer, you will find it's really a little bit painful the next day if you go all the way to your edge and hold that for 2 to 3 minutes. So just work with that. The second is to become very still. Become still, get into your body, notice the sensations, release the muscles, and just sort of feel what's going on. Third basic principle is to just hold. You hold out there. You just kind of hang out for a little while. And that 4th principle I mentioned is to use whatever props you need to be comfortable at that edge, where you're not in pain, where you're protecting injured parts of your body or areas of the body that are a little bit more tender, and that you are still getting those benefits by using props. So don't worry, this is a prop practice. It's not like restorative, but it is a practice where props are going to help you release those muscles and become more comfortable. We're going to start in a couple of poses that I know a lot of people don't like, no matter what level you're at in Yin. Couple of things you're going to need today, just to keep in mind. I always suggest a blanket underneath for all of my practices because the floor is very hard and bones rub against the floor, so for me it's much more comfortable. A second blanket or a beach towel folded up so you get a little bit of height, and 2 blocks. Now these are the 2 things that will really help you get into your practice. If you have not purchased a couple of blocks, they are everywhere. They're at local retailers, Walmart, TJ Maxx, online for very reasonably prices, $4 to $5 a block, which is very reasonable. Really great investment for your practice. So we're going to start with our knees on the blanket. We're going to take our hands and flip those toes so that our foot is really stretched in flexion. Okay. Now, you're going to take your blocks and you can stack them up on top of each other for a little bit more stability. You can hang out here. If you're okay, you can start to fold back. Remember, not your maximum. So for me, this is getting close to my maximum hold time, so I lean forward just a little bit. You can lean perfectly upright. We're just going to be here for a minute. But I want you to start settling into your breath here. That will take your mind off of how your feet feel. So in Yin, we extend our exhale a little bit longer than our inhale. And this allows our body to settle into that rest and digest mode, parasympathetic nervous system. Most of our day is spent in the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. And that's what's so destructive to our body. We want to have that balance in our lives where we have not all of our time in one or the other, but we want to spend a little bit more time in this rest and digest where your body can heal and restore and rest and recover. Just a couple more deep breaths. Let that exhale just naturally soften everything out. Now in Yin, like in other yoga practices, we breathe through our nose, inhaling and exhaling. And then start to lean forward onto those blocks. Flip your toes back and just tap them against the floor. Poor little toes, right? You're going to rock forward a little bit so that your ankle is right in the crook of this blanket. So this is a little top of the foot flip. Now if you want a little bit more, you can start to lean back. This is going to stretch the top of the leg and the top of the foot, or you can just stay right where you're at, or you can take a block underneath your hips so that you don't have as much compression there. Little prop here. Remember to extend that exhale. So in a normal Yin practice, we have a lot of time where there's a lot of silence. Silence for me when I started Yin was very hard to handle. I thought someone had left the room and abandoned us to our own devices and we were going to be there forever. So in these practices, the beginner's practice, I will talk just a little bit more to keep you engaged. Two more deep breaths. So try to relax your muscles. Use the prop to give you the support where you can release a little bit more. So people often ask me, how do you relax a muscle? It is something you learn how to do with training and practice. You breathe into the space, you soften, you sink. One more deep inhale and exhale. Go ahead and lean forward. Take that block out. Come off of your blanket, and you're going to use that blanket for a prop. So I often use a blanket as a prop for those people, including myself, who have very tight hamstrings. We're going to come into butterfly. So in Yin, all the poses are named something different to define them and separate them from a normal Yang practice. We're going to take a butterfly pose, bottoms of the feet together, and we're going to take them out a little bit further so you have this very symmetrical sort of diamond shape in between. Now with our blocks, we're going to make use of our blocks. Sit on the very edge of your blanket, tilt forward a little bit. So here's your maximum, your appropriate edge. Reach out with all your muscles, and then when you stop using your muscles, you'll bounce back just a little bit. This would be my normal position. You can take that block, or both blocks, stack them on top of each other, and you're allowed to curve your back as much as you want in this practice. Drop your head to the blocks. Turn your palms face up so that you're not trying to grab or pull. Know that this pose is not going to look anything like your Yang practice. That's okay. Breathe into the legs, the hips, the thighs. Feel everything sink even millimeters closer to the floor. If you want to take your feet further away, you can. Just where they start to separate on their own. That's going to stretch more of the outside of the leg. The closer your feet are toward your pelvis, the more you're going to stretch the inside of your legs. Allow that breath to let everything slow down. Now, unlike in restorative yoga, Yin, there is a little bit of effort here.
Do want to make sure that you're coming to your edge and then pulling back ever so softly, using the props to facilitate muscle release. But you want to feel some sensations in the body. So start to notice where you feel maybe some tension or some pulling, what most people refer to as stretching, but this is mobilizing that connective tissue. So in Yin, our goal is not to work with the muscles. It is to work with the connective tissue, bones, joints, putting an appropriate amount of stress or tension on them in a safe environment in order to help them grow stronger and become more mobile. The reason for holding these poses longer is that this kind of tissue needs a longer hold time to mobilize and strengthen than muscles do. Just 2 more deep breaths here. Let your breath be really full and rich. Take your hands to the inside of your heels and press yourself back up to center. Take your blocks off to the side for a moment. You're going to take your hands behind you, lean back, and just wave your butterfly wings a little bit. Just like in a Yang practice or a Vinyasa flow, there are transitions in between poses. This would be a transition period, and we call this a rebound effect. You will feel warmth or cold in certain areas of the body, and that's your body rebounding from the position you've held for a little while. So take that time to transition in between each pose and experience all that Yin has to offer. Our next pose, go and bring those knees together. We're going to take one block off to the side because we won't need that. Take our blanket off to the side. Now you can use the blanket behind your knees if you have knees that do not like coming back into child's pose. You can tuck it behind there and sit back on it. That might feel good for you and give you a little bit of support, but you don't have to. You can use whatever you need. You're going to take your block though and you're going to put it down so that you can have it for your head. So shift your hips back, big toes together, knees as wide as you can. So go as wide as you can and then come back just a little bit and start to fold yourself forward. Resting your head on the block at whatever height. So if you were higher up, you would use it higher up and just use your forearms. If you're closer to the floor, you rest your head on the block, take your hands out a little bit further. Go and relax your hands on the floor, forearms on the floor. Take these first few breaths to settle into your pose, and that may mean coming back a little bit further out of it or deepening it depending on how you feel. In Yin, we traditionally focus on an area of the body, most often the legs and hips, because that's the area where the densest amount of connective tissue is. We also focus on meridians. Traditional Chinese medicine says that meridians are what carry the energy throughout our body, and so different meridians have different links to different organs and different parts of the body. They will affect you emotionally and physically in different ways. So you'll hear me refer to certain meridians of the body being worked with on a certain day. In today's practice, we're working on the entire body, so we will affect all of the meridians, all 12. There are 6 pairs and 12 meridians. Doing a full body yin practice. Two more deep breaths here. Start to lift yourself up. If you have your block higher up, go ahead and flatten it down to the lowest height here. And we're going to take a little twist. You're going to take your right arm and feed it underneath your left arm. You can either keep your forehead to that block if your neck does not like twisting, or you can use the side of your head on your block. Walk your left hand out. Right arm goes out to the left with the palm facing up. Now, if you don't like that arm stretching out above, you can always tuck it around behind you, or let it rest right next to your face. Let that shoulder soften down toward your heels. Just 3 more deep breaths. Start to walk that left hand back and right alongside your face. Press all the way up. You're going to rock forward onto hands and knees and do some cat-cow here. So your transition. Inhale, cow tilt. And exhale, cat arch. 2 more, then we'll take the second side. Toes together, knees wide, shift back. Tuck that left arm underneath, turn your head or keep it facing straight down. Take that right hand out to the side or tuck it around behind you. Start to walk your right hand back in. Press yourself back up. Take your block off to the side. Rock forward, 3 cat-cows here. Belly down. And then arch and round. Then we're going to come into Sphinx pose. So this one is actually named the exact same thing as it is in a Yang class. We're going to take our blanket across. This is going to give us a little support underneath the chest. So come down onto your belly. Take the blanket underneath the belly or chest to give you a little support. Take your block out in front of you. And take your palms flat, elbows underneath the shoulders, feet wide. Now you can keep your neck in line with your shoulders, or you can drop your head onto that block if you like. Let the shoulders soften down the back. Pull yourself forward like a typical Sphinx in a Yang class. And then allow your chin to either drop to your chest or your head to drop to the block. If your lower back feels a little bit crimped up in this, you can take the blanket and move it a little bit lower so it's right underneath the hips, and it's going to give you a little bit of opening in the lower back. Let the shoulders soften away from the ears. Feel the length in the spine and down the entire length of your spine, from the crown of your head all the way down. Think of each little space in between getting a little bit longer and more open. What we're looking for in Yin is spaciousness, space, mobility, strength for our bones and joints. In a regular Yang class, you would affect the connective tissue on some level. It is unavoidable. But we are focusing mostly on muscles when we're doing a vinyasa flow or a flow class. Here, sometimes we will affect the muscles as well, but we're focusing more on the connective tissue, joints and ligaments, bones. Extend your exhale, lengthening out. Last 3 breaths. Go ahead and lift your head up. You can take that block out of the way. Stack your hands and go ahead and lay yourself down. Maybe rock the hips side to side. And take your hands underneath your shoulders and slowly press all the way up. So we're going to use this blanket across the middle. Grab hold of our blocks. Stack them on top of each other. Take both knees on top of this. So I always suggest this for dragon poses. These are probably some of the harder poses in Yin because it gives you a little bit of knee protection. So using your blocks underneath your hands, you're going to lift that back knee up, drop it down, and then pull yourself a little bit forward. Let those toes go. Just like in a normal class, you want to take that knee over that ankle as much as possible. Both hands to the inside. This looks like a gecko pose or a lizard pose. Now here we're just going to hang out here just for a few breaths. You might feel a strong stretch in the front of that left thigh. You might feel yourself moving a little bit further forward and let the shoulders soften down the back. I'm certainly able to reach the floor, but here it's a little bit more supportive to stay upright in the block so you can focus on releasing all the muscles in the back of the hips and glutes and leg, so you can really get a deep stretch into the connective tissue of the hip. In many yin poses, there is a little bit of a yang factor. Something will be engaged to help lift you up or hold you up, often your arms or a foot. Unlike in restorative, there is no muscle engagement, no activity, no pressure, no tension, no lifting. There is no yang to restorative. It is completely released. So still here in yin, there's a little bit of effort. Just 5 more deep breaths. Find if you can lengthen the front side of your body a little bit more. And notice where you feel this and how you feel it. For many, this is equated to a deep stretch, held for a much longer period of time. Sometimes you'll feel it even deeper than on the top layers. Go ahead and you're going to turn your right foot out and roll onto the outside of that right foot. Now here you can choose to come down a little bit lower. You can stack those blocks however it works for you to come onto your forearms or elbows. We're just going to be here for about 1.5 minutes. Let your shoulders stay soft and sink down a little bit more. There's definitely an intensity to dragon poses. Try to breathe into that intensity and soften a little bit. Start to bring your hands back onto the blocks, that foot back to center. You're going to start to rock back a little bit. Take your blocks with you for a little reverse stretch here. So bring your toes towards your nose. Use your blocks to give you prop. And then taking those blocks off to the side, step back and come into downward facing dog just for 3 deep breaths here. You can walk your dog out. Don't worry about having the perfect dog. This is sort of a soft transition here. Come back down onto your blanket and get ready for the second side. Stacking your blocks, whatever worked best for you last time. Then bring that left foot out. Take your blocks, lift up that back knee, drop it down, pull it into you, flip those toes. Upright here, however you feel. Once again, you can always stack those blocks higher to come up a little bit more. Find your edge, then become very still. Just allow gravity to work for you in these poses. Gravity will help take your hips a little bit lower, soften your shoulders, soften your body. Take time to note the difference between your left and right sides. Every side is different every single time you practice. It's good to check in and notice where those changes and differences are. Just 2 more deep breaths here. Then go ahead and lift your left foot off, turn it out to the left, roll onto the outside edge of that left foot. Adjust your blocks however it works for you to come down onto forearms, or you could stay up on your palms if that's better for you. Just 1.5 minutes here. It's amazing how 1.5 minutes can seem like forever in some of these poses that we're used to flowing in and out of. Just 3 more deep breaths. Let your breath help you get through those poses. Deeper inhale. Exhale out. Start to bring your hands back up onto the blocks. Bring that foot flat, toes pointing straight ahead. Take your blocks and allow yourself to walk back a little bit. Bring those toes towards your nose. Little half monkey pose here. Which should feel really good after dragon poses. Blocks off to the side. Shift back to downward facing dog. 3 deep breaths in downward facing dog. Shake your head out, yes and no. Find a little opening in the neck. Hear the popping of your bones sometimes. And then come back down. Take your blanket once again. Back across the back. I'm going to use this for easy seated pose. The forward fold. So our blocks again, just in case we need them. Right leg in front of left. Makes it hard to see, huh? Just a normal cross-legged pose, okay? Tilt yourself using that blanket to come a little bit forward. Reach and fold yourself forward. Now, however you need your blocks stacked for your appropriate edge, you can rest your forehead on those blocks. Wiggle your feet into place for the first couple of breaths. Maybe you find you can take the blocks out further or lower. Give yourself a little time to adjust. Let your shoulders soften down the back, your breath lengthen. In each pose, as you go through the pose and the time, check back in with your body and with your breath. Now, in any yin practice, if you feel sharp shooting pain or pain that causes you to catch your breath, really struggle, you should start to press back out of the pose and readjust, or come all the way out and just sit up. If you feel pulling, tension, some discomfort, that is actually quite normal in Yin. But pain is not. Pain is never acceptable. Just 4 more deep breaths here. Walk your hands in and start to press back up. You're going to take your blocks over to the side. Give yourself a little bit of height. You're going to lean over to the right. Take that left arm up and over. Now you can drop these even lower if it feels more comfortable for you. Kind of have to find your place here. Just lean over, take that right elbow to the blocks, left arm up and over. And just hang out here for about 2 more deep breaths. We won't be here a really long time. I want to stretch the side body just a little bit. This is an often neglected area, but in Yin we actually focus on this area quite a bit. Take that left hand back up and over. Take your legs out in front of you, feet flat, and just windshield wiper side to side. There's a lot of little bits of connective tissue right in between each one of your pieces of your side body, your ribs. I'm going to open those spaces. So if you took right in front of left, take left in front of right. Sit yourself up again. Stack your blocks however you need them. Remember, every body is different. The person next to you really doesn't matter because you're not wearing their body. Lean yourself over. Take those blocks wherever your head kind of falls on them. Wiggle your feet wherever you need them to be. After a few breaths, you might find you can either take something a little differently or adjust, or maybe you have to back out of it a little bit more. Breathe into the muscles, release your grip. Release your lower back and your glutes and your hips. They will all be attempting to grip on and hang on because that's what they're trained to do. Just about 2 more long, deep breaths. Extending that exhale, letting everything sink a little bit lower. Start to walk your hands back and lift your head off the blocks. Take your blocks over to that side, whatever way you want to put them. Take that left elbow on there. Give yourself a little support. You can take them further out too if you want more side stretch. Right hand up and over, and just relax. I'm going to feel this kind of stretching up the side body. Right hand back up and over. Hands behind the knees. Take those feet flat. Lean back and just windshield wiper side to side. So go ahead and come onto your back. We're going to take that blanket off to the side because we won't need that right now. We're going to take a block on each side for our twist so we can give us a little bit of support. So take them about where your leg might land. That might be kind of as far as your arms are away from you. Arms out to the side. You're going to go ahead and shift your hips over to the right. Bring your knees into your chest and then drop those knees over to the left. So try to stack those legs on top of one another. Give yourself a little support. You're going to turn and look over your right shoulder. See if you can feel your right shoulder drifting closer to the floor the longer you hold this. Maybe when you start, it's way off the floor. It starts to soften to the floor. Inhale, turn your head back to center. Engage your core and bring those knees back through the middle. Shift your hips right down the center. Maybe hug your knees into your chest. Give them a little rock side to side. And then over to the other side. Shift those hips over to the left. Bring the knees into the chest. Drop those knees over to the right. Support yourself on that block. If it's a little too far, you can bring it in a little bit closer. Lift your head and turn and look over your left shoulder. Check back in with that breath and with whatever sensations you feel, whatever areas affect your body here. Just one more deep breath. Turn your head back to center. Engage your core. Bring those knees back through the middle. Shift your hips right down the center. Go ahead and hug your knees into your chest. And just one more pose before Shavasana. Bring the bottoms of the feet together. Take those blocks and turn them so that the corners hold your knees up a little bit. Go ahead and take your arms up overhead if you want to, and that's only if your arms are fully supported by the floor. If they don't, go up as high as you can go, pull back a little bit, and just let your whole forearm and hand be supported by the floor. Let your exhale soften even more, prepare you for Shavasana. Feel your chest really open here. Front side of the body. Very open, spacious, and mobile. Just 5 more deep breaths. Softly take your hands to the outside of your knees. Bring those knees together. Take your blocks off to the side. Very slowly stretch one leg at a time out to the corners of the mat. Tuck your shoulder blades underneath, palms out to the side, facing up. Maybe shake yourself out a little bit to get settled into the floor for Shavasana. Bring all your awareness back to your breath. And follow that breath as it is inhaled in, goes all the way down throughout the entire body, swirling around, and exhaling back out. Feel your exhale extend even longer than your inhale, even longer than you have been during this practice. If you can stay longer in Shavasana, stay as long as you need to, but if this is all the time you have, begin to deepen your inhale and your exhale, bring a little bit more strength to that breath, and begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Softly bring your feet flat to the floor, knees bent. On your next inhale, take your arms up overhead. Stretch and lengthen your spine as long and tall as you can get. And then exhale, roll over to your right side. Take a moment to pause here. Whenever you're ready, press yourself up into whatever seated position you like best, using whatever props you have around you that work. You can keep your eyes closed or open. Take your hands palms up or palms down onto your knees. Gently roll your shoulders down your back and lengthen your spine. And on your exhale, drop those fingertips down to the floor. Inhale, sweep the hands all the way up overhead. Open your eyes, look up at your palms. Exhale, hands to heart. Peace and namaste. I hope you enjoyed this practice full body for the beginner, or for the beginner's mind. It was lovely actually putting this practice together. For me, I had gone a number of years deepening my practice, and I really feel like this felt really good for me to come back and have that fresh view of the beginner's mind. So whoever you are, whatever you need, this is a great practice for you. Know that Yin is a very quiet, very serene, very peaceful practice, and it will help really soften you mentally, emotionally, and physically. You will find more mobility and flexibility throughout your entire body, but you will also find that your mind is a little bit more focused, a little bit more serene, a little bit more collected, and that your breath is very different. So it kind of gets you out of your head and into your body, balances things out. So I hope you enjoyed this practice. If you did, please like and comment down below. Look for more of these throughout the year. We will cover different parts of the body and then end once again with a full body practice so that you have at least 2. These will tend to be anywhere from 30 to 55 minutes or so. Really, it depends on what's kind of going on in the practice, but I hope you enjoy. If you are not a subscriber, please click that subscribe button down below, and I hope to see you again soon. If you are looking for a 7-day Yin immersion, up in this corner over here is a little dot that will tell you all about signing up for a free 7-day Yin immersion that I offer, 7 days of Yin, starting at the top, moving down through the body, practices curated just for you, delivered straight to your inbox. So I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.